All right, part 2, y'all. I want you to open up your workbooks to page 56, and this is going to help you as you go to write from telling the information in your keyword outline back in paragraph form and writing it. This is going to help you brainstorm how you might want to do that. For example, if in your first paragraph, you're going to tell about Holland, your setting, and that it has windmills and tulips, we may want to think of some strong adjectives to describe them. So at the top of the page, you can see a box and it gives quality adjectives. I know that we don't always write at the same speed, so I will talk through this slowly, but you be in charge of the pause button. So if you need to pause this video, so as soon as before I move on, to write down a word that I've said, I want you to do that. And if you don't spell it perfectly, that's okay. When you go to write your paragraph and you hand your first draft into your editor, they're going to help you with your spelling from there. So you'll be good to go. All right, top block here. We're looking for quality adjectives that's going to describe tulips. So let's start with tulips. So you may say Holland was a land filled with red tulips. So you may put red. I'm going to give you one more idea. You may put that it was filled with, you may not want them to be red. You may want to say it was filled with white or yellow tulips. So at this point, you can pause and go ahead and write in the color that you may want to use for your tulips. Or you may want to have two. I'm going to say Holland was filled with red and white tulips. Go ahead and do that now. Next, windmills. Now, you all are probably pretty familiar with having seen a windmill before, and windmills are large, big structures where the mill goes round and round and round, and yet we can't use the word big. It's a banned adjective word. So I need you to think through, or even turn if you want to page 156. It's almost at the end of your book. And you are going to find another word for windmills. So you may say the colossal windmill. You may say the massive windmill. I'll give you one more. You may say the monstrous windmills. Whatever word you want to use, go ahead and put that in now. Next, the dikes. Now, the dikes were meant to protect people. So you may call them the protective dikes or the helpful dikes. Either one of those. You may come up with one on your own, but you can go ahead and pause and put that in now. And lastly, Hans. We want to come up with some words that describe Hans. You may say that Hans was heroic. You may say that Hans, you could also be helpful. You may say that Hans was caring. You're going to come up with your own word to describe Hans. Go ahead and pause it and put it in now. Next, strong verbs. In the middle of this page, on page 56, you'll see strong verbs. You're going to find banned or boring verbs in the source text, and you're going to replace them with stronger verbs. And page 158 in the back of your book is going to be really helpful for this. For example, in our source text, it said that it talks about the ocean would come through, and I was just trying to find which part had that. Anyway, okay. By number 1 in the strong verb section, it says ocean would come through, but we cannot use that word because come is a banned verb. So instead, you might say the ocean would charge through. The ocean would crash into. The ocean would, plummet on. You're going to use other words. And then help, he said. Can't use said. It's a banned verb. So instead, you may say, help, he cried, or help, he declared, or help, he proclaimed. So go ahead and pause it and write in a strong verb or two there for yourself. Next, number 3, it says men came. Again, we can't use the word came, so we may say instead, I'm telling you, these lists in the back of your book are fantastic. We could say men arrived, men whooshed to the rescue. Whooshed is even in there. Men hustled. Any of those. Go ahead and pause and fill in. Next, ly words. Can you think of ly words that would go with any of the above verbs? Well, you might say fiercely. The water could rush in fiercely. You might say desperately. You could even say quickly. And then, who, which clauses. We're going to pause before we fill this in, and we're going to look over on page 57, and we're going to go over what a who, which clause is. These really are fantastic dress-ups. They help immensely in the writing to make it more descriptive and more interesting. Please sit up now. Sorry. As you write your story at the top of page 57, add a new dress-up, the who, which clause. The who, which clause is a group of words that begin with either the word who or the word which. The who clause will describe or tell more about a person. The which clause will describe or tell more about a thing. The boy who had worked on his story read it proudly, for example, in the box there. Or you could say, the story, which was filled with great words, inspired the class. Notice the who, which clause is set off by commas. This is very important. Look in the box again at the italicized words in the who, which clauses. You'll see before it begins, there's a comma, and at the end of the who, which clause, there's a comma. So if you have a who, which clause in the middle of the sentence, it must be surrounded by commas. This is because a who, which clause should be inserted into a sentence, meaning if you took the who, which clause out, you would still have a complete sentence. Look above here in our box. If I took the who clause out and I read, the boy read it proudly, still a complete sentence, or the one below it. If we take the which clause out, or where it says which was filled with great words, and we just said the story inspired the class, it's still a complete sentence. So that's a great way to test your sentences to make sure that you're inserting the clause properly. Alrighty, you're going to add a who, which clause to the sentences below. Note, if you simply insert the word who or which, you will create a fragment. You have to put in the entire clause. So I'll give you some examples, and I'll tell you where to pause if you want to pause and write them in. Holland, blankety blank blank blank, has many dikes to hold the water back. So first of all, are we going to say who or which? Is Holland a person? No. So we're going to use which. Holland, which is underwater, has many dikes. Next, or you can pause and write that in. Write in Holland, which is underwater. Pause. Number 2, Hans, who was a brave boy, did not take his finger out of the hole in the dike. So you're going to insert who was a brave boy. Go ahead and pause. And then you can combine the two sentences below by making one a who, which clause and inserting it into the other. By number 3 here, you'll see the people ran to see their hero. The people heard Hans had plugged a hole in the dike. So here's an example of how you would combine those. You could say, the people ran to see their hero who had plugged a hole in the dike. There's different ways to do that, but there's one example, and you can pause and go back and do that if you so choose. So to wrap this up, I'm just simply going to touch on your next page, page 58. And in page 58, you want to keep in mind that your composition is neat and is double spaced. Check these things, by the way, before you turn it into your editor. You're also going to make sure that your title reflects words from the final clincher. So here's a good reminder. In your keyword outline for this writing from page 55, you're going to add on your final clincher, which is the moral on what is to be learned from this story. From that clincher, just like you watched in that video with my daughter Tori, you're going to take words to make an interesting title for your paragraphs and your writing. And then under style with dress-ups, each paragraph, it just occurred to me something, I'm just looking here. Each paragraph needs to have a strong verb underlined, and then off to the left in the margin, you write a V to point out your strong verbs. If it's an ly word, you're going to underline the ly word, and off to the left in the margin, you're going to write ly to point out these elements that you've added. Quality adjectives, and you're going to add a who, which clause to each paragraph. You're also going to use a sentence opener, which is an ly opener. You could say, bravely, Hans stuck his finger in the hole, however you want to say, but you're going to use an ly word to open the sentence. You're going to underline that and label it with a number 3. And then decoration, I want you to use alliteration. You may say, humbly, Hans honestly answered the village, or making sure the first of 2 or 3 or more words all begin with the same sound. So you are ready to go back to your checklist. You've read through your checklist. You want to go back to your keyword outline, and you're going to practice telling each line back in a complete sentence and writing it down. When you're done with that entirely, you're going to turn it into your editor. They're going to make the adjustments that are necessary that you need to make, and then you're going to write your final draft. Make sure you check your work. I know it's another step and it takes time, but it is worthwhile. Check your work before you hand it into your editor, and certainly before you hand it in for your final draft. Y'all have a great week. I will show you my buddy here real quick.
Hi.
This is my Mr. Paul. This is my 3rd child out of 4.
Hi.
And Paul, how old are you?
6.
6 years old. And these students are much older than you, and they are writing paragraphs, writing upon writing. Can you tell them, say, you can do it? Oh, then we're just going to get embarrassed. Tell them, say, you can do it. Nope, we're just embarrassed. I'll say, you can do it. We're cheering you on over here and hoping that y'all have a great week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.